Right now, your body is yours alone. Nothing lives inside you but you. That feels normal. Obvious even. It is also brand new. Think about how clean that actually is. No lodgers, no passengers, no uninvited guests. Just you, alone, in your own skin. For almost every human who ever lived, it was not true. Something else was living in there with them. Usually many somethings. Eating their food, drinking their blood, laying eggs in their gut. And they carried it for their entire lives. Your ancestors were never truly alone in their own bodies. What was in there is going to make your skin crawl, and the twist at the end might change how you see your own. Let's start with a man we can actually check. Over 5,000 years ago, a traveler died in the Alps. The ice froze him solid and kept him. We call him Ötzi, and we have studied every inch of him. Deep in his gut, scientists found tiny eggs. They belong to whipworms. A whipworm threads itself into the wall of your intestine. It feeds there and lays eggs inside you. A single female can lay 20,000 eggs a day. Ötzi had been carrying them, probably for years. Tucked in his clothing, they found 2 human fleas. In his DNA, the oldest known case of Lyme disease. This was a fit, capable man for his time. And he was, quietly, a walking ecosystem. Here's the thing about Ötzi. He was not unusual. He was completely normal. Go looking in ancient toilets and graves, and the eggs are everywhere. Round worms as long as a pencil, coiled in the intestines. Whipworms stitched into the lining of the gut. Tapeworms, flat and segmented, growing longer every single week. One kind of fish tapeworm can reach over 20 feet. That is one animal, living inside one person. Coiled up inside a human being, longer than a car. A tapeworm did not even need you to feel sick. It just hung on in the dark, stealing a little of every meal. Some people carried one for 20 years and never knew. It grew a new segment every day, each one packed with eggs. Those segments broke off and crawled out on their own. These were not rare horror stories. They were the background hum of being alive. We know all this because the eggs refused to die. Their tough little shells can survive thousands of years in soil. So an ancient toilet is really a frozen census of worms. Scientists rehydrate the eggs and count them under a microscope. For most of history, having worms was not the exception. Having none would have been the strange thing. Children were often infected before they could even walk, and it had nothing to do with being poor or dirty. In medieval England, scientists studied a group of friars. These were monks with proper toilets who washed their hands. More than half of them were still riddled with worms. They were twice as infected as the rough townsfolk nearby. The likely reason is bleak. They fertilized their vegetable gardens with their own waste, and then they ate the vegetables. Even a king was not spared. When archaeologists dug up Richard III, they found roundworm eggs. A crown could not keep the worms out. Now, how did everyone keep getting infected? The answer is that the world was one big open sewer. There was no clean water and no real plumbing. You drank from the same stream you bathed in. You walked barefoot over soil soaked in waste. Hookworms waited in that soil for a bare foot. They burrowed straight through the skin and rode your blood to your gut. Other eggs rode in on dirty hands and unwashed food. Undercooked meat carried tapeworms curled up inside it. Every meal, every drink, every step was a small gamble. And almost everyone eventually lost. And we have only talked about the inside. The outside was its own zoo. Lice lived in the hair on your head. More lice lived in the seams of your clothes. They crawled, they bit, and they itched without end. Body lice also spread deadly fevers, like typhus. Fleas hopped between the dog, the bed, and you. Ötzi, remember, died with fleas still in his coat. At night, a different worm went to work. Pinworms crawled out to lay their eggs around the backside. The itching woke children up, scratching in the dark. And then there was the worst one of all. A guinea worm could grow 3 feet long under your skin. You would feel it traveling, slowly, through your leg. Eventually, it burned a blister and tried to crawl out. The only treatment was to catch the end of it. You wound the worm onto a small stick, a little more each day for weeks, careful not to snap it. Pull too fast, and it tore and rotted inside you. Some places were far worse than others. Ancient Egypt was a parasite paradise. The Nile gave Egypt water, food, and an entire civilization. It also gave it a highway for tiny invaders. One study scanned and tested 31 Egyptian mummies. 65% of them had a worm called a blood fluke. Read that again. A worm that lives in your blood. You caught it just by standing in the water. It bored straight through your skin without you feeling a thing. Then it swam upstream through your veins and settled in. There it laid spiky eggs that clawed their way out through your bladder. Huge numbers of Egyptians peed blood so often they thought it was normal. The blood fluke even had a favorite victim, the young. Children playing in the warm canals caught it first. 40% of those same mummies also had head lice. One weaver, named Nacht, had it even worse. He had worms curled up and hardened inside his own muscles. For millions of people, this was simply life. So picture actually living inside one of these bodies. A constant dull ache low in your belly. Always a little tired, a little pale, a little hungry, because the worms are eating your food before you can. Children grew up small and weak, their growth quietly stolen. You could feel them moving. Sometimes you could see them. A worm in the stool. A wriggle that was not you. There was no pill, no dewormer, no real cure. People chewed bitter herbs and hoped. You were born with company, and you would die with it. And a heavy load of worms could kill outright. Enough of them could block a small child's gut completely. This is the part where you feel lucky to be you. But the story does not stop here. Because everything you just heard now flips around. Your body was actually built for those worms. Sit with that idea for a second. For millions of years, we were never without them. So your immune system evolved fully expecting them to be there. It learned to share the body instead of panicking. The worms kept it busy, and strangely, they kept it calm. They had quietly trained it for a delicate job. Stay alert, but do not overreact. Tolerate the harmless and save your fire for the real threats. They were ancient, irritating roommates. But roommates your body knew. Then, in barely 100 years, we evicted every last one. Clean water, flushing toilets, soap, medicine. For the first time in human history, our insides went empty. And something strange happened right as the worms vanished. Allergies exploded. Asthma exploded. Autoimmune diseases climbed, year after year after year. Hay fever, peanut allergies, Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, illnesses where the immune system attacks nothing, or attacks you. Scientists noticed the timing was no coincidence. Your immune system spent millions of years braced for an enemy. Take the enemy away, and it does not relax. It gets restless, it gets twitchy, and it starts swinging at things that were never a threat. Pollen, peanuts, your own gut, your own nerves. Researchers call it the old friends idea. The worms were awful, but your body grew up around them, and it never quite learned how to live without them. There is one clue that makes the case even stronger. People who move from wormy regions to clean cities change fast. Within a few years, their allergy rates begin to climb. Same bodies, same genes, just a cleaner, emptier world. Your hay fever every spring is part of this story. So is the child who cannot go near a peanut. Here is where it gets genuinely strange. Some people today are putting the worms back, on purpose. There are humans who pay money to swallow worm eggs. Hookworms, pig whipworms, living parasites, by choice. They do it to calm Crohn's or colitis or stubborn allergies. In one early trial, patients swallowed pig whipworm eggs. More than 7 in 10 saw their gut disease ease off. There are stories of a single hookworm dose quieting lifelong hay fever, the very thing your ancestors fought their whole lives. A few people now order on purpose, just to feel normal. We spent thousands of years trying to get the worms out, and now, quietly, some of us are inviting them back in. It sounds insane, and maybe it is, but for some, a few worms beat a lifetime of disease. So look at what you actually are. You are one of the first humans in history to be empty inside. No whipworm in your gut wall, no fluke drifting through your blood, no 20-foot tapeworm sharing every meal you eat. It is cleaner, safer, and far longer than any life before yours. You won a lottery your ancestors could not even imagine. But here is the quiet, unsettling part. Your body does not fully know the worms are gone. Deep down, it is still set for a dirtier, wormier world, still braced for an enemy that simply never arrives. For almost the entire human story, you were never alone in there, and a strange, ancient part of you is still waiting for company.